very warm welcome to this most unusual collection of beautiful people that I know. Luckily, I'll start with Mustafa. Mustafa, hi. Welcome to the show. Mustafa is from Bir, which is near Dharamshala, and he's been an architect and now searching and enjoying the search of his life right now, uh, is how I can put it for now. Manoj is known to people who've been watching, but Manoj has been a friend for many years now. He runs a website which talks about alternate issues. Um, Roopa is based in London. Uh, Roopa is an alternative healer. She combines a few techniques and well-being techniques, if I'm not mistaken, along with health, uh, which she pursues, which she teaches, which she helps people heal with. Welcome, Manoj and Roopa, also to the show.
Thank you.
Uh, so this is the first experiment of sorts where I have not thought of a topic. So it's a free-flowing conversation. Uh, so the first thought that is coming to me: what brings us here together? Manoj, do you want to go first?
What brings us here together? Um, should we say that it's the love that we feel for life itself that brings us together?
Okay.
Um, I don't want to talk a lot about this. I'd like to kind of stay in the space where we feel that, you know, if we understand what life really means, which is inclusive. And obviously, there is something about living, about being alive, about feeling alive that we all love. But we don't fully understand. So we are trying to figure it out.
Okay. Mustafa, you want to take that forward?
Yeah, first of all, I am loving Manoj's eyes when he's speaking. There's something about, I don't know, maybe I'm just fascinated by people's eyes, but
Yeah,
there's a beautiful, he's smiling through his eyes, which is so beautiful.
yeah, true.
Um, yeah, when Manoj was speaking, I was like, okay, what does it mean by being alive? Not what does he mean, but what does it mean to be alive? As I was listening to the question, what brings us here or what brings me here, came up for me is just this sense of curiosity. Because when you actually invited, it's very interesting because when you invited, when we were talking on message, I actually took out my phone to actually reply to you that maybe I'll pass it this time. I'll pass this invitation this time and maybe we'll connect some other time. That is what my intention was to reply. But as I started typing message, I typed something else. It's like life taking over. That no, just show up and be curious. There are more people. Listen to them, meet them, learn about them. How is life expressing itself in different ways through these different people? What are their journeys? What are their insights? And what are their, what is the unique shade? What is that unique way in which this instrument is playing in this giant symphony? So that curiosity, that sense of curiosity is what brings me here. Yeah.
Wow. So, Rupa, what's the instrument you are playing with your instrument?
uh, yeah, I'm playing my part as it comes to me. Not really thinking about it much. But to answer the question as to what brought me here to this platform was mostly you, of course. Of course, you were the main point of call, but it was about meeting kindred spirits of sorts, people who think similar or perceive life similar to me in that sense, beyond the mainstream so-called corporate world. So that was my main fascination. I'm always in search of such people who inspire me and whom I can learn from and get the best of life overall.
Your instrument needs to play louder for sure throughout the episode. That
This
is
instrument had
one,
her mic and everything checked, and it was supposedly playing great.
yeah. So please be a little mindful when you're answering
Yes, I will.
because,
I will. I'll come closer and talk. It might scare a few
yeah,
people, but sorry.
yeah. Uh, for myself, I come to episode after episode, not only just this episode, because I find the stories worth telling are in the everyday and that they don't happen most of the time. We are so I read or I heard something last week which was very, very beautiful, uh, which said we are always seeking the ideal. So within ourselves also and other places also, and that's why when we are disappointed, we are massively disappointed most of the time because we always set the bar so high that we forget to appreciate things as they are. And I found that was so true because the everything can be better. Oh, this your sound can be better, your video can be better, this can be better, that can be better, experience can be better. But it is what it is. In a way, when Mustafa contextualized starting from somewhere else and he landed up showing a similar trait to what Manoj was answering, similar answer to what Manoj said. And it was so beautiful. It was like, wow, you cannot plan this.
That's
You can, do a lot of good stuff while planning things. Uh, we are all intelligent people. We are educated. We have the technology and we understand things so much better than our uh, earlier generations, only in terms of technology and how we have come to use it for now. But suddenly the things that work seem to be having a life of their own. And perhaps that is life. And that's what we are trying to study because we think we know, but then we are something that life brings up, and then you're forced to look at it and go up in awe and reverence for what it is. Manoj, does that happen to you? Uh, your plans being very, very good, and you are sure that they are going to work very well on something, and is there a line of thought there somewhere?
no. It's been a while since I did anything according to plans. Used to be a long time ago that I used to live with some plans and some objectives and all, but that's something that I shouldn't say I have given up, but it's just happened.
Yeah.
It's no longer there. So no, surprises happen, of course, but they're not, uh, strictly speaking, totally unexpected
Oh.
because you are kind of being in this space where um you're living. You at least, as far I can talk about myself, I at least try not to plan uh, a lot, in the sense, a lot in the future. So we're talking about small little plans, we're talking about, a meeting next week with somebody, or like you said, yesterday, let's do it together, this podcast. And so this amount of planning is okay.
Okay.
But planning the big things in life is something I've given up because uh, what from my experience, learned, life is all about really learning. And so what I learned is that we tend to kind of try and plan a lot, but life has its own, you know, agenda, and things just sort of um, go where they want to. And so it's better if we are aligned with that flow, because when we try to plan too much, then we kind of offer, some sort of resistance to what life has in mind for us. It sounds a little abstract maybe to many people, but something that I have lived actually. I have tried a lot of things in my life, and never anything went as per my plans. So I realized that planning is really fruitless. It's not something that you should be doing too much.
Rupa, are we instruments of something that we are not? So we have this whole thing of that we control something, so we plan. There is a past that we have that has given us some kind of experience. So we approach days and months and years and events very knowingly. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I've had people talk about, okay, even teenagers, they're so clear, they want to go here, they'll become this and they'll become this, and this is what they'll study, and this is the geography they will inhabit, and uh, there is no space for the unknown sometimes. When you hear them, and not only them, a lot of people in the world who are well meaning, good, well to do people, do you think, how do you think what Manoj said fits into this world? And while we are all nodding our heads, yes, and some part of it is like that for us as well now. So how do you make sense of this quote unquote nonsense?
Yeah, all the sense lies in the nonsense, generally speaking, I believe. But yeah, I'm totally with Manoj as to how you can start planning, but not be stuck with those plans, because that's just expectations that you have built up, isn't it? And in my experience, I have felt that what we want and what we need may or may not match, and generally they tend to not match, is my experience anyway. What I want could be just from the biases I've had, and like you say, the experiences I've had, societal pressure, maybe my environment, all of that has influenced my wants. But do I really need it for my existence and for my growth? I can't be sure. The mind plays a lot of tricks. So for me, as I approach life, I prefer following my highest joy given the moment. At this point, what brings me joy, I follow it. And that has the power of, I believe, synchronously bringing things that will keep you in alignment with what you need to fulfill your life purpose. Just keeping to that simple formula has given me a lot of peace and joy, and life is beautiful at that.
How do you factor in fear, Mustafa, with that kind of thing? Even while she's talking, I'm thinking, oh wow, such a nice rosy picture of life. But then suddenly all those typical things of bills and uh, life and school fees and those kind of mandatory everyday concerns also raise that fear. How will I deal with that? That runs parallelly in my head sometimes, not always, but sometimes. Uh, Mustafa, how would you look at the parallel track that runs in at least my head?
Mm. Wow. I, I have a feeling you have asked such a huge question, which probably I don't know if I am very equipped or a right person to even answer that, because we are talking about two different things here. One is middle world responsibilities of paying our bills and fulfilling our duties, and the fear and the insecurity and all of that that arises with it. I'm still dealing with it. I've not figured it out. I have all of those things. Like you said, I'm living the life. Yes, sure. A lot of things are not yet figured out. Um, so that is one thing that I can share right now, that is very much part of the game.
Ah,
The one fact I know for sure, in some way or another, that is very much part of the game. And I think one thing that is popping up in my head right now was, we any kind of spiritual inquiry or practice or any kind of these things starts from where we are. So here we are in this life situation, and we have all these material which at a soul level somehow we conspired for this lifetime, for our liberation, for our awakening. Now if I look at it, the dance from that perspective, I have unique challenges. There's a unique way I feel fear. There's a unique way some topics trigger me, shake me, send me back to unconsciousness, contracts me. All of these are there. Now, how do I use them? How do I infuse more and more awareness? How do I infuse more and more curiosity? How do I become more and more honest with these processes within me? Where am I avoiding life? It could be anything. It could
oh,
be anything. I have been avoiding life in so many ways. And of course, the beautiful thing about life in its perfection is it always will catch up. Um, it always will catch up. So, yeah, I don't know if I responded to you correctly,
oh,
but
you did.
um,
You answered an
yeah,
extra question that was coming up by saying that life catches up while we are avoiding it. So that was also the next question that was running in my head at that point of time when you were answering. How do you make your peace with it? You have said that you do not, but you allow things to happen when they are happening of sorts. That's what I took out of it. Uh, while it is happening, it's happening.
yes. I mean, see I mean, the way I'm experiencing this dance is life is happening. No matter what my personal desires are, what my personal intentions are, no matter what I like, no matter what I dislike. Now, the only difference is, in a relative way, in my experiencing, the less I argue with life, the less I argue with the reality as it is, the less I suffer. And the more I argue, the more I fight, the more I'm in resistance, the more I suffer. So the degree to which I suffer is very relative to how I am in conflict with life's natural processes. And I have my fair share of suffering. So whenever I'm suffering, whenever I'm in deep suffering, um, these inquiries are ongoing. Where am I rejecting life in this moment? How is life breathing right now? And what are my personal wills and desires and intentions? And having said that, like Rupa was also sharing beautifully, that we do make our plans because we are not yet, I don't know, maybe there are enlightened beings who have dissolved this sense of separate self and there is no conflict between personal will and divine will. Maybe that's there. But honestly speaking, I'm not there. And I have a sense of me doing something. So as long as I have this sense of me doing something, then the practice for me becomes how can I align it more and more with uh, the will of life to the best of my capacity.
Yeah,
And of course, when there's a deeper faith for me. It's like when I'll fumble in this process. Of course my egoic desires will take place. Of course all of this will happen during the process. But the beauty of life's processes is it will always show me. Like since last few weeks I have been going through series of disappointments. I have had certain intentions to travel, I intention to do a retreat, I intention to do this, and almost all my plans have been failing. And that brings with itself a lot of discomfort, disappointment, fear of uncertainty. All of this is there. And of course, a part of me wants to distract from that, from my old patterns, coping mechanisms, this and that. And then a part of me is like, oh, but can I be? can I be a little more conscious? Can I infuse more awareness? Can I be with this discomfort a little more than before? And maybe something else will be revealed. Can I develop more capacity with these processes? Um, so I don't know. I'm just rambling
Yeah,
randomly
yeah.
my processes, but
It's a good
these
ramble.
are, yeah.
Mhm.
Please, you have to stop me and stir me, and because
No,
I
no,
can
no,
go
no.
anywhere.
We don't. I think I am loving it, and I can see Rupa very clearly between the camera and Manoj. There is a bit of a yeah that I can't see his reaction, but I am sure he's smiling as we are going along as well. Manoj, one interesting question popped up. How
Mhm.
do you see suffering in the present moment? When there is any kind of pain or disappointment or discomfort, how do you personally view it at this moment? If, like Mustafa, if you could give an example, it would help.
Um, so it really, I mean, depends. I think it depends on the degree of awareness that I at the moment at that moment of when the suffering actually strikes. What is the degree of awareness that I'm in at that moment? So there are times when it really sweeps me away, and I'm like questioning, everything, and I'm like so completely overwhelmed with it. And, that lasts for a while maybe. And then sort of the balance comes back, and I start to look at it from a more neutral perspective and realize that, the suffering itself was actually being caused by my own resistances. And, and then, so sanity kind of comes back, and you're back to your self, where your disappointments are just that. They're just disappointments. I mean, you're not like insisting things to go your way only, and that this is the only way that they should. So you kind of so it's not like you'll not be disappointed. uh, you are going to have certain uh, wants, desires, ambitions, expectations, all of that in certain ways. Like Mustafa was saying, we I I don't even think that there are such beings who have completely dissolved us. I don't think that that's really conceptual, in the sense that maybe, at least for me, at least at this point in time, I don't think that such being they don't seem to be, they shouldn't be in the body. Then maybe they've just like dissolved the body as well. So long as they're in form, they'll probably have some basic desire, even a desire to, like, they're hungry and they desire to eat. It's not like, okay, let food come and go into me. No, that's not something. I will have the intention, I will pick up a morsel, I will put it in the mouth. So to that extent, that'll always happen, so long as we are in this form. But I guess, uh, kind of come to a stage where you so you kind of bring your demands from life, degrade them. You can bring them down to the level of preferences. So you prefer something. You're not demanding from life. You have preferences. And then all your preferences are not going to always be met. So, but that perspective is not always there. So when things happen, and so at a larger context, yes, that we have that you know that privilege, I could say, of being on this path of self-inquiry, uh, where we can say a large at when we take a step back, we can see things, a lot more clearly. But we are not always being able to take the step back at that very moment. So when we are in the particular situation, life situation, um, sometimes the suffering hits you very hard. And then it takes a little while, and you need to kind of be patient at that time. That's all you can say. I mean, you can't even be patient really, because you don't have that perspective either. So you're just suffering. You're simply suffering till uh, the suffering has done its job.
Yeah. Rupa, you think life is kind, or it holds on till you change your mind about suffering, or it makes you suffer about the suffering a lot more? Does that happen? How does one view life in the throes of pain when one is right in the middle of it? Uh, when the wisdom is not showing up its face and you know that you have it in you. And because this sense of the self is also there, कि, oh, I am a, whatever, I am a seeker, and I know how to pause, and I have such wise things to say. Everybody loves me on Instagram, on my WhatsApp status, and they are saying, oh, you're so brilliant. They have found their path because they are reading my shared status. Where does that bloody wisdom go when it hits me badly, or life is trying to teach me sometimes a very basic lesson? Because sometimes the lesson, when it comes up and you see it or listen to it, and you just laugh and you say, "Okay, oh, how could I have got so convoluted about such a simple thing?" Does that happen, and why does it happen?
I think life is just being life. It's we who define it, qualify it. You know, it's us. We are the narrators at the end of the day of our own lives.
Yeah.
We are the one who build the story around it. Oh, this is bad. This is suffering. I don't deserve this. You know, this is not good. That is bad. It is just. It just is. It just
Is
is. A death is a death. A birth is a birth. A failure is a so-called failure. At that point, it seems so, but that's what it is. But it being bad and your perception about it influences how you experience it. So
okay.
life just happens, and it happens for a reason, I believe. And I believe the reasons are meant to serve you, but whether
Oh,
you're aware of how it's meant to serve you or not is a different story altogether. Sometimes you know, most of the times you don't. But the best you can do for yourself and for the sake of life is just flow with it. Yes, at the absolute peak of the disappointment or the suffering, everything seems to have deserted you, sort of feeling you do get. But it's about training your awareness, training your mind to come back on it. It's exactly like how anybody who starts meditation, oh, I can't just meditate, impossible, the mind keeps roaming about, and then I have to pull it back, it goes about, it's endless, I'm not getting anywhere with this. That's how everybody starts, right? But as you sit with it for longer and longer and longer, and it builds, it's like a muscle which is building. It's exactly like how you build up your biceps, you build up your
yeah.
mind, right? You train it. So similarly, the wisdom is always there in us. It's never gone anywhere. We are wisdom, right? It's for us to retrain to come back to it sooner than later. And the more you are at it, the more sooner you get it. So the first time you might take 1 month, next time it might take 3 weeks, and then two, and then 1 week, and then 1 day and 1 minute. So you are building up to it. That's what life is all about anyway. To get there more, it becomes second nature eventually. That's what I mean. When that awareness is there, that's what I want to do, that's what I choose to do. I don't choose to suffer with the so-called suffering. I want to go beyond. I choose to go beyond it. There is no way you can't. I'm not saying it's going to be easy all the time and it's going to be la 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 la, but it's not impossible either, and it does get better with time.
I have a little, point to make here that when you asked the question to Rupa, I was smiling and I was actually, gesturing that this doesn't happen. When you are in the middle of suffering, and if the thought comes that, oh, you are some great being who, dishes out all that wisdom, then that thought creates further suffering. Please be aware of that. Okay.
True.
When you are in the middle of suffering, everything will cause further suffering. So unless the suffering makes you, that your only option you have is to wake up and surrender, let go. And that doesn't really always happen. It's not in your control. It's not like something you can choose to make it happen. Like, okay, I choose to now give up. It does. I don't think it's not worked for me as yet.
That's
So
the only way I
when,
have survived life. In my
yeah,
experience, the awareness helps you make a choice, because you can either react to life or respond to life. That's again a choice. I can always choose to be reactive and go with that, is still going with the flow, but a reactive flow. Or I can choose to respond to the flow as well.
Hmm.
I'm a human
yes,
with choice at the end of the day. I have free will. Yes, I have limited free will in the so-called the design
Sphere
of
of
life I've chosen for myself, which again I believe is free will at another level, but I still have free will. So I have free will for a reason, right? Not just to give up and just go down with it. But for me to make a choice, if I want to make a choice, I can choose not to make a choice and just go suffering with it too, which a lot of people, it's a valid choice.
Yeah, but you know what, Rupa,
But
the thing is that you're talking about the fact that so there is this that awareness that is available or is accessible to you when your suffering, comes, like when some sort of suffering comes in. If you had access to that awareness, you probably wouldn't have suffering. You would only have a disappointment. Okay, and then you would just move forward, which happens quite often. But there are times when it just completely hits you very hard, and the awareness isn't available for you. I mean, that higher level awareness isn't available to you at that time. And when that happens, even the very thought that, oh, I should be aware, is going to create further suffering, is what my experience is. In the sense that the only thing at that time I do is suffer. In the sense that I'm not doing it by choice, I'm not suffering by choice. I don't have a choice in the matter. We're choiceless when we are suffering in that sense. And all kinds of thoughts will come to you. You will you'll doubt yourself. You will have all kinds of second thoughts about everything that you know at an intellectual level.
Yeah.
But have you actually gone beyond the intellectual level to any of these things? Then when you come back, you realize that none of those internal sort of dialogue that you were having has absolutely any value, because all of that was happening between there are entities in our minds that we have created, you know
Mm-hmm.
that exist. They may have a lot less power today than maybe a few years ago, but they exist and they're dormant, and then they come back. So that happens. I mean, I'm only talking about myself, of course, so I don't know about how you, but all I'm saying is that sometimes the suffering is so hard that you don't have access to that awareness.
I'm with you. I'm with you. It depends on the suffering. Some are way worse than the
Yeah.
others, depending on how big your loss is or not.
Yeah, so
But you sooner or later have to snap out of it at some point, right?
no, it's not a have to, because the point is, again,
In a sense, yeah, oh, yeah, you could very well do the rest of your life with that suffering. Yes, you could very well do that too. But
no,
I
not
still
that.
feel
I'm
at
not,
some level,
not saying that.
it's a
I'm not
choice.
saying that. I'm saying that, what I'm trying to say is that how do we how do we talk about this in a manner where people who actually suffer, what can they really do about it? So can they wait for that window to open up? A window will open up if you go through suffering. There will be periods when you will be able to see something. You'll be able to glimpse, unless the person is like completely overtaken, and that the mind is so strong, and these entities are so strong that it has no real chance, at least in this lifetime, for the person. But most of us have that little window that opens up, and then can we then make use of that opportunity, look out through the window and see that the sky is completely open and that we are sitting inside. It's our choice then. But the choice comes in later. While the suffering actually is taking place, I feel very often the suffering, if we use the word suffering, then you don't have a choice. That's what I feel.
I have, let me, I think you guys are speaking about two different points in the suffering cycle. So I know this because I had on one of my courses, without getting into the details of what the technique is, Vipassana. At the end of my course, I was sitting with my teacher and I asked him, so this is where the point of suffering becomes wisdom. But I've already crossed it because that's how the technique is, that I keep moving. I don't sit there and say, oh, I now know. There's no such thing. Then you continue going. And sometimes you are continuing it as a habit and you realize this much later. Oh, at that point I crossed, but this is the wisdom that had arisen without me being aware of it at that point of time. So these are two different points. So which is the point that I should consider that I have understood that thing? So he said this whole thing is the wisdom. It is not this or this. So maybe both of you are saying is the mind that suffers is all what he had said was is also the point, The mind that wakes up is also the point, and the mind which has understood both of these is also the point. Uh, Going back to, I have a interesting question coming on from this for Mustafa. So, something that Manoj said that triggered of this extremely beautiful line, is it okay to fake it to make it in meditation? So, I consider myself wise even when I'm not. Does that work or does it not? Because a lot of people do this, and while I have had my own experiences with this or not, uh, does it happen that you say, oh, I know how to take care of this, and you stay with that uh, for a while till real wisdom strikes you and you say you are out of it? So you're not really accepting suffering. You're saying, "Arey, I know this. I have suffered earlier, so I know a bit about this. Let me just stay with this and let me." You've not surrendered fully to the thing. You're being clever. Does it work? And that's why I use the phrase fake it till you make it. Is does that work in, because we do this in a practical life. So uh, you've done architecture. So when you went for your first job, somebody is giving you a job and say, will you be able to handle it? So you're not sure whether you can, but you want to give them confidence that you will. So you say, yes, I will handle it. It's not necessary that you're lying. You will go back to your books, you will go back to your experienced friends, you will work out everything to give the best solution possible. But at that point, you need to tell the client that you are in control. So you're faking it of sorts because you do not have a real answer, but you are giving them, because you're not meaning to cheat them, but you are telling them, look, I'm worth getting this job because I'll give my best and you will get your best job. So similarly, in a place of suffering, when you're going through it, I mean specifically more a space of what Manoj described than Rupa right now, because Rupa's answer is a little more definitive in terms of awakening of sorts has happened to the suffering. थोड़ा तो अपने हाथ में आया है, मुझे पता है कि मैं क्या गलत कर रहा हूँ. When Manoj is describing it, or what I understand of what Manoj is describing, you are right in the middle of it. But suppose many people who give God that benefit of doubt कि आज नहीं तो कल ये ठीक कर देगा, मैं आज एक और बार ये प्रेयर कर लेता हूँ, मेरा कुछ सॉर्ट आउट हो ही जाएगा. So that is still faking it till you make it, because you haven't understood the wisdom, but you let go a bit of it, and somewhere secretly you're saying, मैं चलो वो बाबा जी को पूछ भी लेता हूँ, ये हो जाएगा क्या, मेरा हाथ देख लो, मेरा क्रिस्टल बॉल गेजिंग कर लो मेरे लिए कुछ. Whatever, matlab, I am saying we all try to get out of suffering. I am not even putting a judgment onto that. So my question to you is, how does the process work out for you while in the throes of suffering, to the point of whatever little bit of awakening about it? Or am I clear, or you need, the question has taken a longer thing than the answer was?
Yeah, anyways, I think question is also breathing in a very flowy way through you.
Yeah.
So, hmm. While I was listening to the entire dialogue that was happening, there were so many. First of all, I was just recognizing there's so much wisdom here. And also, what I was recognizing is that there is a certain limitation when we are using words
Yeah.
and concepts to to vocalize these inner dances. That's why metaphors and that's why poems works best.
Yeah.
Because as I was listening, I was listening to a deeper truth, deeper relative truth in all the sharings, even what Manoj was sharing and even what Rupa was sharing. Because there is a truth in both of them. Like our mind thinks in duality. It's either this or that. But the reality is not this or that. It's this and that. Um, so I'm just listening to it from that lens. Um, what was your question? Does it work? Fake it till you make it. Um, I don't really know. I don't have a definitive response about that, but I have a few things that are emerging for me. Maybe
Okay.
I'll just share that and maybe
Please.
we'll find some keys. Like one thing is that there are first of all, I want to make a clear distinction between pain and suffering, according to the Buddhist teachings. That pain is the first arrow which no human being whatsoever uh, will be able to escape. We will feel all kind of pain, physical pain, emotional pain, losing a loved one, breaking of a relationship, losing this, losing that. It's part and parcel for everyone. And they say uh, that suffering is optional. Good. So just making a differentiation. Suffering is the story that we tell ourselves about pain. The deep attachments that we have around, I think, the fundamental core of existence. Like the death is the biggest fear that we have, deepest fear, the mortal fear that we have, and the attachment to body and mind and the whole physicality and idea of who I am is the greatest attachment we have. And from that space, we all suffer. In like we are all very much, and then they have different flavors. Having said, having like just keeping it as a framework for whosoever is listening, that there is a framework to this. That uh, pain is always there, and the degree to which I suffer is the story that I'm telling about that suffering, not even consciously, but at a very unconscious, subconscious level. I have some, like for example, when I'm hurt, pain is there, but I have a strong attachment that this is my hand that is hurting, and it shouldn't hurt. Now, this is a story. It shouldn't hurt is a story, and that's why I'm suffering. Um, and of course, when I wake up from this story, I'm still feeling the pain, but I'm not suffering. Now, we all have this understanding to a certain degree, but what Manoj was also sharing that, but we do suffer. We do have these experiences. We do have these when we are probably we are deeply unconscious. We where this wisdom, the part of us that has this wisdom, that part of us doesn't have this wisdom. So that is there. So, I mean, the way I see this happening is sometimes there is some karmic thing happening. That sometimes there are certain deep attachments that we have, and sometimes it has to run its course. Like sometimes there are these deep suffering, and I may have intellectual knowledge. Oh, this is impermanent. Oh, I'm not my body. Oh, I'm not my mind. I may have these intellectual understanding, but that is not yet my embodied experience. It has not yet become my embodied lived wisdom. It is just my intellectual knowledge. So this is where, like you're talking about vipassana, in vipassana we are going to the unconscious and making this conscious. But when we are reading like so what I have understood is just knowing I'm not my body, I'm not my mind is not enough. um, uh, at an intellectual level, and the reason I suffer is because I believe in I'm not my body, I'm not my mind. I don't really know it. I don't really know it in my own experience, because if I knew it in my own experience, I wouldn't suffer the way I suffer. But I also see the point in what Rupa was sharing, because Rupa was talking about a practice, and I resonate with that in my own processes. That there's a dimension of our being which is awareness, which is witnessing the dance. And like Ramdas suggests, that is who we truly are. That is what our true nature is. It comes down to the identification. Now, again, knowing that I am awareness is doing nothing. But establishing myself as awareness is the whole practice. And I think what Rupa was pointing to was how do we cultivate that dimension of ourselves? Now, in the beginning, I have none of it. And I'm just at the mercy of my experiences and my external environments. And I'm at the mercy of that. And I've lived like that for years, and suffered immensely. Uh, and of course, to reach the point where I couldn't suffer anymore. I was tired of the suffering, where this dimension opened up. But then it started taking a lot of practice. How I see the game is when I'm not suffering or when I'm not triggered with heavy, difficult emotions, that's where my practice happens. Where I'm relatively in a in a more peaceful, calm, centered state. That's where I can do my practices of cultivating awareness, of witnessing the processes, of becoming aware of this and that, and just resting at that and cultivating that part of me more and more, shifting this identification process from the thoughts and the feelings and emotions and the sensations to this spacious awareness that is witnessing it all. Now I cultivate that more and more, and like Rupa was suggesting, earlier I would become conscious and it would take me days before I come back to this awareness. Then it may take me hours, then it may take me minutes, but it's a process of cultivating. So I somehow I see it simultaneously. There is a part and a practice of cultivating this, but even while doing that, there are moments when something so deep gets triggered within me, and I have all these practices and I have all these methods and I have all these devotions and I have all these gods and I have all these things, and none of it actually can save me from that particular experience, which is excruciating, heartbreaking, suffocating, and full of that. And that's where the deeper cultivation of faith is there in me, that okay, I'm on my knees, I am on my knees and I'm crying and I'm devastated. None of these things are working for me, and yet at least in me there is something that has faith that life is still functioning in its way. Like this process also belongs.
Yeah.
Like my failure, my defeat also belongs. So I think this I somehow hold this simultaneously. That I does it make sense? Like
Makes a lot of sense. Your expressions are very heartbreaking too. I'm wondering when I will be able to be so vocal with my body language. Uh, it's so beautiful. You covered what all of us were talking about in such evocative, both expressions and words together. Uh, I kept tripping onto what should I call this episode for so many times, because every time you said a new sentence, I said, "This is it, man. This is it." So there was this happiness of this, and while I was so enamored by what you were saying, also because the points themselves were much beyond the words, because one has kind of gone through each stage. Uh, why are we seeking what we are seeking? Any of you? Why are we seeking it? Why can't we just be with what is? And there are enough number of people who live absolutely normal life, saying सुबह जॉब पे जाना है, शाम को आना है, खाना पीना है, चल रहा है सब, और है प्रॉब्लम तो क्या प्रॉब्लम है? Why think so deep about the problem? You aren't thinking so much about the happiness. You take, say, you want to order food from one of these services. You just look at the menu and you say, हाँ यार आज ये अच्छा लग रहा है, आज खा लेंगे. तभी तो तुम इतना सब इंटेलेक्चुअलाइज नहीं करते, इतना विजडम नहीं ढूंढते. फिर दूसरा पार्ट आता है तो क्यों इतने उत्तेजित हो जाते हो, इतने ये? Why are we not normalizing pain? मतलब I'm just thinking aloud. I haven't thought this question ever in my life before today.
the question that you're asking is that why do we seek, or why do we do any of these?
हाँ,
Why
why
do
do
we
we
take
make
this
it so
journey?
important? Why is it so important to find deeper meaning, or what is क्यों नहीं? मैंने उसमें क्या प्रॉब्लम था? If somebody were a normal person to come, and I have friends who, very few, and who are quite sorted also. तो से कि इतना सब क्या सोचना है यार, पैसा कमाना है, इसके लिए काम करना है, और घर चलाना है, और बीवी बच्चों का ख्याल रखना है, और एक वैकेशन पे जाना है, तो क्या प्रॉब्लम क्या है? इतना क्यों तुम लोग इंटेलेक्चुअलाइज करो? लाइक I'll give you one nice example. We were on a trip from, I think, Goa to Bombay, and they showed Matrix in that bus. And I said something very wise, or what I thought, to the guy who was sitting with me. So he looks at me and he says, "You think too much." And I was like, "Oh." And it was like a मतलब suddenly I was thinking मतलब वो balloon को उसने immediate prick कर दिया कि अरे ये किधर चला गया मतलब मैं तो इतना deeply सब देख रहा था. So how do you each one of you, I would want an answer from each one of you for this because it's so fundamental to what we are doing with ourselves at this stage of our lives. Right, wrong is not the question. It's just
No.
why are we doing what we think. So
It's why not? Why not is what I would say. Why not is an equally valid choice to live life in that way too. If there is nothing that bothers them, they have nothing to seek. Good for you.
wonderful. That's as practical as a question as answer as a question that was. Manoj, you want to say something?
I I don't have an answer to this question. In the sense of why do we seek is something that I cannot answer. Why
Why
do
do
I
you
seek?
seek?
Why do I seek? I can tell you.
Why
I
do you
can't
seek?
even say I'm seeking because there is nothing really that I've never really liked the word seeker. So when we use
Okay.
it generally, I avoid using the word seeker.
Mm.
Um, I like to just know what I am, who I am. I like to know where have I come from. What is this whole life? It's just I will like to call it only curiosity. Curiosity about everything, about life. You know, I like to read about science for the very same reasons. I like to read about space exploration, about the universe from a scientific perspective. And I also like to read about the same universe and all of that from the a more, like Vedic perspective. I'm just curious. And, you know, I don't like to intellectualize this part because
Yeah.
I feel the moment I try to find reasons, then the mind is coming into play and trying to figure certain things out for its own. Then that there is a motivation. I don't think there is, for me, in this case at least, a very clear motivation. This is how I am. I don't know. Grace placed it there somewhere,
Oh,
in my nature.
beautiful.
I don't know why seekers seek. I don't know why seekers seek. That's a question at least I cannot answer.
Mustafa.
Maybe some people suffer a lot, and then I don't know. That's just a guess. They suffer, and then the suffering pushes them into
Yeah.
you know going in this kind of thing, and something happens, and then they really. Some people, maybe the opposite. There's absolutely zero suffering, and then they get bored out of life. And like, oh, what is this? I mean, I have everything. And so I don't know, maybe I'm just guessing. That's probably why people seek. It could be either extremes.
Yeah.
Too much pleasure sometimes, may make you feel that there's nothing much left because pleasure isn't giving you the pleasure. The sensual pleasures, eating and vacations and experiences, all of those things, they're not giving you anything more. So you're like, okay, it's empty. So what more? And so they start probably seeking something deeper. For me, it's just been the way I've been always. Again, like Mustafa said, you could call it karmic, but I don't believe specifically in past lives and all of that. I don't understand all of that. I sometimes we use those words, but I don't really, strictly speaking, understand how that whole thing works. Because I don't understand the concept of an individual soul, the individual soul. So the soul cannot be individual. It's more like I liken it more to maybe, electricity that
Mhm.
powers all kinds of equipment, bulbs and all of that. And then the bulb fuse it goes off, but electricity doesn't go anywhere. So the form goes, but we still go. So that's life. So I don't understand and I have never really been able to reconcile the individual soul idea of individual souls. that outlasts the form. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so
That's something
beautiful.
I don't understand. So I don't know whether like it's a past life karma or something. That's something I don't completely subscribe to. Maybe it's true. I don't know.
Your not knowing is quite loaded, I must say, in terms of what you explored with that answer is so beautiful. Uh, so many varieties of thought. For the record, I don't have an answer to my question also. I've been thinking, okay, I should just preempt and tell Mustafa, here is my answer. And I'm thinking, what is my answer? It is quite a bit of all of this. And also, I guess very, very loosely, I can say I want lasting happiness. Yeah, every time it goes away, it is something that I do not like. I want it to last. I want it, and I do not want the spikes of going up and coming down. So normal kind of happiness is okay. भूख लगी अच्छा खाना मिला डिसेंट पेट खराब नहीं हुआ खा के भले वो टेस्टी नहीं है नॉर्मल टेस्ट वाला है चलेगा बट नॉर्मल जिंदगी चले ज्यादा कुछ ये नहीं आई डोंट नो आई डोंट वांट टू क्वांटिफाई व्हाट हैप्पीनेस इज बिकॉज आई डोंट रियली नो yet but something that it should last because one gets tired of both Rupa's and Manoj's experiences also, whatever one has faced. तो वो भी होता है तो भी थोड़ी देर बट इट डजंट सीम टू लास्ट फिर वो छोड़ देता है तो अरे यार रुक रूपा वाला विजडम आई वांट टू होल्ड ऑन बट नहीं है फिर थोड़ी देर के बाद वो मनोज वाला ही सीन है यार अ, अभी तक तो चल रहा था ठीक ठाक अब क्या हो गया व्हाई एम आई सो जिटरी एंड इट इज with all due respect to people who do not get there or what they are facing on their journeys, it's a very difficult journey. When you do not have the power of whatever, quote unquote, I use the word pause very often in my head. If you're unable to pause, it's a very, very uh, terminal condition. You feel very disappointed with life and everybody and relationships. And मतलब, there are people who, I was watching a series called Afterlife on Netflix. Wonderful if you want to watch. That guy is suffering because his wife is no longer with him. She's not alive anymore. And he acts like a complete ass with everyone he meets. He's suffering all the time, and he drinks every day. And it struck me like, yeah, man. Sometimes you know that feeling, you know that oh, it doesn't go away, even if it is for a fraction of a second. You just lost all your bearings, and you're saying, I don't want that again. I say, यार थोड़ा शांति वाला ही होगा तो चलेगा बट लास्टिंग चाहिए थोड़ा ये पेनफुल नहीं चाहिए आई गेस with all due respect to the word seeking, I don't have a better word, so I use the word seeking. But I love the word for a different reason altogether because I all the people I have liked in the world, all the Tukarams and the Nanaks and the Laldeeds and uh, all of them, I Jesus Christ, and I find there is a quality that I also seem to have somewhere, not always available to me when I want it, uh, but in a way with my own pain sometimes giving back to the world is something that's a very enjoyable process and it is not done out of some sense of charity. uh, I don't feel anything about the word charity. I think it always implies that somebody is up and somebody is down and it doesn't matter. I think empathy or uh, communion
Sharing,
is
sharing.
a better word that we are all equals. When you are down I'll give you a hand, when I'm down you give me a hand and chalte hain thoda. But for me all the saints of the world, all the gods of the world also do that service only. When I think of Nanak and when I see the picture, which may not be true, one doesn't know, so many centuries back, but I think oh he must have had a smile like that, he must have had a happiness of that sort, and that's what I expect a saint to be. And I
Hmm.
I feel some saintliness, some holiness for a little while when I get one with him for that moment. It doesn't stay, which is where the problem is, obviously. So, Mustafa, I did give an answer. I don't know if it answered, but do you have something to say on uh, why this journey is happening to us? Uh, for you specifically, how do you see it?
Yeah, I'll respond to that. First of all, when I'm listening to everyone, no, even like it's like my there's such richness in every point that is being touched, and it's like something in me feels like we can go on this tangent in a very elaborated way and really
True.
milk it for a while. Um, because there's so much richness in processes. I'll come to my response. Is it okay if I take a few
Please,
moment?
please do.
Yeah, one thing that was coming to me when I was listening to Manoj, when he was sharing about how he doesn't subscribe to this certain way of seeing things or something like that, this popped up in me. I'm sure it's borrowed from somewhere, but it's like we come together and we share our maps of consciousness with each other.
Okay.
And it connects to what you were also saying that, oh, I don't have an answer. None of us have the answer because none of us or anyone in the existence has ever been able to capture the answer that we are um, after. Like it will never be captured. We are all sharing our perspectives, we are all sharing our relative truths, and they are all simultaneously coexisting. They are all simultaneously relevant at from one point of view, and then they are all simultaneously completely irrelevant from another point of view. So it's like from where we are speaking. I mean, that's how I see the dance. I see the beauty. I see the beauty in coming together and sharing our maps and maybe finding common threads. Oh, this helped you this way. This helped you this way. Oh, maybe I can take this. Maybe I can take that. Like I see this honest kind of inquiry where we are sharing maps with the
Yeah.
understanding that they coexist and simultaneously can exist. And the fanatic religious approach is more like my maps is the correct one and yours is not because we are caught up in maps.
Yeah.
Um, not knowing that these are abstract maps. None of the maps are really true. It's working right now for me from going from point A to point B, and these maps will also dissolve and evolve, which it constantly does. Um, so not to get too attached to maps and methods and models, but holding it lightly, acknowledging its importance, but also knowing that they're all meant to dissolve. I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah, that is one thing. Um, my worst limitation is that I hear something and I feel inspired to connect that to something, and then I keep on listening ahead to people, and then I forget that thing. So that is what is happening to me right now. I am forgetting a lot of things. That is my real limitation. So either I can be fully present or I can remember.
Yeah.
So that is there with me. Um, but why do we seek is an interesting question. And there are few responses that are popping up on me, and I think these few responses are coming from different spots where like
Yeah.
maybe from one spot that's one response, one another spot there's another response. So one of the responses is that we don't really have a choice in this matter. Like there's no choice in this matter because starting me you Surinder, you said something beautiful that how why can't we accept this the way it is? Why do we go on seeking? And what popped up in me is actually we are accepting things as it is. People who are living like you were saying that you have friends and we have friends who are not asking these existential questions, and it is as it is. It is perfect. But then there are people who are asking existential question, and it is as it is, and that is perfect. So there is a perfection in both
Both the
simultaneously.
things. True.
Not one is better than another. Life is breathing
No.
in different ways through different, and there is a certain perfection in that
Of course.
from one channel,
Mm.
and but then from another channel, like from another point of view. And these are the things that is being touched in our sharings from here and there. When Surinder, you're speaking about, oh, I want some lasting happiness. I don't want this fickle coming and going of happiness, or I don't want this something
Yes.
permanent. I don't want this and that. I want something lasting. Where did this knowing longing come from? Because I almost trace this in some form or another in almost every human being. I have not yet found any human being who does not have this within them. And this is somehow inherent. And of course, the way we would put it, understand it, name it, frame it, seek it, search for it, act on it is so vibrantly different.
Yeah.
Sometimes we will seek that. Like I somehow have this nudge. I may be completely off in this, but I somehow have this nudge that at a deepest intuitive level, we know this lasting happiness that you talk about, or some form of transcendent non-dual reality which is not affected by these dualistic ups and downs. Somehow at a deepest level something in us knows that to be true nature of ours, and we can call it happiness, we can call it peace, we can call it something. Again, all these are just words, they
Yeah.
are not the real thing. But I have a sense that something in us already knows that is there.
Okay.
And then I think then the way I see the whole dance is there are two kinds of seeking then. Like first part of my whole life, where I was seeking it outside. I wanted to be recognized in certain way. I was seeking it in sex. I was seeking it in relationship. I was seeking it in some people seek it in money. Some people seek it in fame. Some people seek it in drugs and alcohol. And this is one kind of seeking. But I think what we are seeking is that.
Yeah.
It's just that we are seeking here. Then another kind of seeking, so-called people like us, spiritual seeking. Same seeking. It's the same trip, different channel. Now I want to be enlightened. Now I want to be awakened. Now I want to be one. Now I want to. This is a relatively in our head. It's a noble seeking. Oh, I'm not. At least I'm not doing drugs. I am meditating. But it's same.
It's the
So
same thing, of course.
I have a sense that as a human being, somehow there is something there which knows and which is yet in a seed form, which longs to breathe as a embodied uh, presence. I mean, again, all these are words, but there is something there. And of course, then there is a different degree to how it shows itself. Um, I think, yeah. And again, one of the responses I also resonate with that came up that sometimes we are in an incarnation where we are tired of suffering. We are tired of suffering. We are tired of our usual ways of functioning. Uh, like I try to enforce my personal will, my intellect, my all of that onto life, and I tried to manipulate life. I tried to do all of those things. Um, I failed. I failed gloriously. Because there was these two things. A part of me wanted safety, security in the known, in the relationship, and that had all these controlling mechanisms and manipulative mechanisms and all of that. And then there was this part of me that longed to be free, and these two are constantly dancing together. And ultimately I failed in this intention because I never felt safe. I never felt that safety, because it's again an abstract thing. Relatively, we can feel safe, but there is no safety. Life is uncertain. Life is uncertain. A relationship will end, or a person will die eventually, but something will happen.
True.
Uh, so yeah, I think this. First of all, there is no choice. If there is a choice, please take it. If, sometimes there are moments when I get this thought. I wish I was not aware of these things, because sometimes it's a good thing to not be aware and live unconsciously. It's more troublesome when I'm aware of certain things and I'm still acting unconsciously. It's a tricky one. Yeah.
So I am the good part about this episode is that I am enjoying it thoroughly. The bad part is I have no clue what the topic of the podcast is. But I am liking the entire unknowing of it, and it seems like one of those early, when we start our journeys, we meet people like us. We go for treks and we go for picnics, or we go to some place and random place and just sitting for chai, and three or four of us connect and we are talking about things which are completely whacked out, but make full sense to us, at least the three or four people sitting here, for this companionship of thoughts, and for this wonderful conversation. I thank you all, and hope we do this again, because now the mind is greedy. It has liked what has happened, but I will not plan it too much. We can come up in any formation and try and fix a day one of these days again and go impromptu. I think we succeeded. Knowing quite a few things, and the non-binding of the topic is also helpful because it allows us to express ourselves so beautifully. Thank you, Mustafa. Thank you, Manoj. Thank you, Rupa.
Thank
I
you for
shall
this
see you all
beautiful.
soon.
And thank you, Surinder. Thank you, Surinder, for creating this beautiful space, for these explorations, for these conversations. And I'm delighted to meet all of you, Manoj and Rupa. And
Likewise.
I must say that it feels quite short, but we have to honor the timings and the format. Looking forward to connect further
Yes, we shall.
if we get the opportunity. Thank you so much. I love listening to both of you, even though very limited.
Thank you
Oh,
so
we
much.
loved you, whatever you said also, and the animated
Same,
way in
pulling all
which
of
you
us.
express yourself,
Mm.
Yeah.
it's very, very alive. That's like the word I like.
Yes.
Quite mesmerizing.
Yes.
Yes. I shall see you all soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.